Some art supplies combine magically, and I want to show you such a magical combination. I'm using Joyful Gesso, which has already been applied to the page and has dried. It's in one of my drawing room journals. And I'm then using the new Skincare Magic Wand pencils. Joyful Gesso can be used as an acrylic paint. It's a fabulous base paint as well, just like a normal gesso. And it has just the right amount of tooth, and it has just the ultra matteness that coloured pencils really love. Now, if the gesso is too rough, it chews up your pencils. It's hard to get a smooth line. It's just a little bit crunchy. If it's too smooth, if it doesn't have enough tooth, there's nothing for the pencil to grab onto. But Joyful Gesso, it's just in that Goldilocks zone. And it just makes it fantastic for adding coloured pencil too. The only rule with this combination of art supplies is the paint must be dry. You can, of course, draw over wet paint, but the pencil will just sort of scratch into the paint. It won't sit on top. It won't behave itself. So this is absolutely bone dry. And I'm also wanting you to notice that sometimes I use the point of my pencil and sometimes I lay my pencil flat. Of course, when I've got my point down, I'm getting little extra details, and when I'm laying my pencil a little flatter, I'm putting on a softer application, a wider application of the pencil. The pencils in this set have little clues with their names. So the shadow colours have the word shadow in them. The contour colours have the word contour in them. The neutrals, the beiges, the browns, have the word skin in them usually. And then you've also got eyeball, lash line for special purpose colours, but they're just little indications. It's a little fun reference. You can use whatever colours you like wherever you want to. And the colours of Joyful Gesso that I've got in the background are Carefree Cream, High Kicks Caramel, which is really a craft paper colour, and Skipper Beat Sienna. I've also got another colour in the background that is under development at the current time. I'm adding in the little features. You saw me start with the cheek colour and the lip colour, and now I'm adding just to sort of work out where the faces are turning to, and if I'm going to have the head looking up, down, that sort of thing. Get some of the little features, get my bearings with each of the faces, and then I'm going in with the detail. One of the fabulous things about drawing on Joyful Gesso with coloured pencils is that you can erase them. You know that erasing coloured pencil, you can sort of do it on plain paper as well, but there's usually an indentation and there's usually a shadow left. You get less of that when you're working on top of the gesso. And I really love how the lighter coloured pencils can come to life when you're working on a coloured background, even more so when it's a coloured background that has texture, it doesn't have to be just Joyful Gesso. Any Jane Davenport paint is ultra matte, all of the paints that I've ever created, because I like using magic wands, coloured pencils, on top of it. So it's always an important thing for me. And having taught so many people over time, drawing and painting, I know, you just have to trust me. The drawing with coloured pencil and paint is just yum, yum, yum. And it's just a very expressive experience, and it feels nice. And if something feels nice, you'll do more of it. That's practice, and you'll just get better at things. I'm using that dark colour to not just draw the features out, but the features, or those lines, really are the darkest points of the face. And then I need to add my lighter colours. So I'm adding the different creams and whites to add those highlights to each of these faces. I also absolutely love adding a little bit of color into highlights and into shadows, and using a little bit of light blue. You can just add a little bit of magic into both a shadowed and a highlighted area. Just have to play with that. I'm now cracking open the original set of magic wands, which have all of the bright colors. There's 24 colors in here. You can see my set is nicely worn down in the colors that I use most often. And that's also reflected in the subjects that I use as well, and where I use those colors. So always in any colored pencil set of mine, the yellows, they're going to be, I do use them from time to time, but they're going to be fairly tall, because if I'm going to use yellow, it's usually in big swathes, and then I would turn to paint or watercolor. Anyway, I digress. I'm using various colors just to bring out more detail. I love the looseness and the penciled lines that I get with these materials together. So we've got our darkest darks, we've got our highlights that I've been building on there gradually. Now we need our highlights, and I'm going to use one of the musical markers. This is from the white noise set. It's got a very, very fine point. I'm using that to lift the eyes, to add sparkle into the eyes, and just on any other really high points of the face. While I'm letting that dry, important to let acrylics dry, let's think about what are we going to do with the hair, because they, in these three little figures that I've got happening here, by adding some hair, I can use that as a device to tie these three little faces together. Now, I filmed this during one of my live streams in my Facebook group, and I was talking about whimsical features versus realistic features and the proportional differences. So we've got different versions of whimsical. The first girl there, she has more whimsical features, big eyes, small nose. I'm playing with the proportions. The girl in the middle has more balanced features, more like an actual human being. And the girl at the end, she's more whimsical as well. But I want to tie these three girls together because they're not just part of a lesson, they're also part of my art journal. So I want them to live in harmony on the pages. And a way of tying them together is a device like this, using color, using something to bring them together. So I'm using the hair colors. The paints that I'm using are the little bite-size versions of the layer cakes. This is the Secret Ingredients palette and the Sweet Treats palette. The reason that I'm using these and not watercolors or inks perhaps is because these do have some opacity, and I need to cover up where I've built out that higher, like the actual top of their skull. I needed something with a little bit of opacity to come over that. So I might take a couple of layers, but that is, I want something with opacity, and that is layer cakes. They're going to be lovely for this. And I've got three beautiful blues, which I think look so pretty against the chocolate brown, because you've got those beautiful neutrals that are warm, and then you've got these cool bright colors over the top. I can add a little bit of those cool colors into their eyes because they're all warm toned. Well, we are all warm toned as human beings with our neutral colored skins. Let's add another way of tying these three girls rather together. Their little dresses. So I'm going to mirror the shape that their hair is forming with their little dresses. I quite often draw these little smock type dresses. I don't know where they come from. I think it's because I like to leave the shoulders sort of bare, and then I like to have something that's flowing and has movement in it, because it just adds to the movement of the whole page. I can show action in the hair and in the fabric, and let that take the movement and add more volume to the whole page. I think I also add this type of dress because it's not really a fashion. It's a sort of an ageless, mystical, sort of romantic thing that could be popped on by anyone in any era that was capable of making fabric. So it's sort of has a timelessness to it. And I usually with my artwork, the focus isn't going to be their dresses. Like I said, they're just a little extra device used to tie things together or add movement. To add some really sharp detail, I'm going to use my little gel-based paints that have their own brush. These are the Candy Dippers. There's 12 colours in the set. This black, it's called Black Cat. I use the Black Cat and the white, which you'll see pop up in a minute, and that's called Sugar Cube. I use these all the time. They're usually a finishing touch. Sometimes I'll add some of the other beautiful warm tones for cheeks and skin. You can smudge them out with your finger as well before they dry. And once they dry, that's that. They dry to a nice matte surface and they're waterproof. The black does have a slight gloss in it because I do use it for eyes, so I wanted it to have that tiny little bit of gloss in it so that it looks even more black. If you compare a matte black and a black with a little bit of gloss in it, the glossy one, the shiny one, the satiny one is just going to look even darker. It's just an optical illusion. So in the way that the Candy Dippers are is as little final touches, and that's why that one's got that little bit of gloss in it just to make it just extra delicious. Strangely enough, that trick doesn't work with other colours or with white, so I only do that with black. Anyway, I digress yet again. That is a little exploration of the coloured pencil on a matte acrylic paint, specifically my Magic Wand pencils in the skincare and Magic Wand sets, and the gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous Joyful Gessoh. And our supporting cast was the layer cake paint, which is the convenience of watercolour, pan watercolour, which I adore, and gouache, but not in all the tubes and not the big heavy cups. It's its own thing. Layer cake is its own creation, its own beautiful beast. And of course the Candy Dippers, which give those little final touches. I love the warmth in their cheeks, these girls. I love the colours, and again, love coloured pencil on gesso. And as with all of my creations, you can find them at janedavenport.com. Some of the things that I've shown you today are exclusive to my website. Some of the things you can find in fantastic independent retailers around the world. Because the Joyful Gessoh is part of my collection with Creative Expressions. The Magic Wands, the Candy Dippers, the layer cakes, they are all JDHQ exclusives. They're a niche thing. Davenpeeps, get it? And if you want to see the full video of this or any of my live streams, you can join my Facebook group. You just look up under groups, Jane Davenport Mixed Media. It's free, it's fun, it's full of lovely, delightful people. It's a moderated group, so you can feel safe sharing your art and just having fun.